All right, let's
Good.
just jump right into it then, huh? This deep dive is on the U.S. Open, and I don't know about you, but I keep thinking about that Vamos Chung chant from back in, what was it, 2019? Gave me chills. Just pure raw energy, Really felt like the U.S. Open had this, totally unique vibe. But reading this article you sent over got me wondering, has all this hype, this surge in the Open's popularity, maybe cost it something along the way?
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? The article does a great job, I think, of highlighting that tension that's at play here, that excitement for the sport's growth, but then also that maybe a little bit of sadness for what might be getting lost in the process.
For sure. And they don't waste any time getting to the point either. Right off the bat, they hit you with all these kind of staggering stats about how much attendance has exploded at the Open. Just in the last few years, it's like all of a sudden, everyone in their Instagram followers decided Flushing Meadows is the place to be seen. I mean, is that something you've noticed too, just out in the wild?
Oh, absolutely. And the article really gets into why that is, breaks it down. It's not just about a surge in people actually into tennis itself. It's this whole convergence of things, right? You've got the rise of these tennis influencers, the whole fashion scene around it now, even shows like, what is it, Breakpoint on Netflix that all play into it. It's almost as if the US Open has become this cultural phenomenon that goes way beyond just the actual sport.
Totally. It's like, I don't know, they painted this very vivid picture of the scene there now, and not always in a good way. Influencers everywhere, celebrities. Remember that photo of Ted Cruz at the Open? The one that went totally viral?
Oh, yeah. And the article brings up moments like that, these kind of absurd celebrity sightings, to really get at something. Not that having a famous face in the crowd is automatically a bad thing, but it just begs the question, has the focus shifted a bit? Instead of it being about the athletes, the actual matches, you start to wonder if it's more about who's sitting where, wearing what brand.
And that's got to take away from the experience, right?
Yeah.
At least for those diehard tennis fans.
That's exactly the point. They talk about this brand synergy that you can just feel in the air now. And you can't help but ask, is this even real excitement for tennis anymore? Or is it something else, something more manufactured?
Right, because if the energy is there, doesn't matter if it's genuine or not.
Exactly.
And it's funny because part of me is like, this is amazing. Tennis is finally getting the attention it deserves. But then there's this other part. Maybe I'm just being nostalgic, but I do kind of miss that feeling of the Open being this best kept secret. I was into tennis before it was cool,
No, you're hitting on something really key there. There's a certain feeling of exclusivity that I think a lot of fans connect to, especially in the early days of getting into something. And it kind of feeds into this whole other thing the article gets into, this dynamic between the, I don't know, casual fan versus the diehard tennis enthusiast.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You see it in those walkways, right? Jam-packed, people complaining about match times being off. It really starts to make you wonder, is this a good thing?
It's almost like it's too big now,
Right. Right.
Is the Open becoming a victim of its own success in a way?
Right.
And the article definitely wrestles with that, especially when they talk about how it's impacting things like ticket prices are insane now, and even just the atmosphere at the matches themselves.
Exactly. It's almost like there were two U.S. Opens happening at the same time, right?
Totally.
You've got your diehards, the ones who've been going forever, who get all the little nuances of the game, who live for those gritty 5-set battles.
And then you've got, who are these people? The newcomers who maybe are there for the spectacle, the Instagram story, or, God forbid, to spot a celebrity in the wild.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so interesting about that whole anecdote they tell about Dan Evans, or should I say Danny, as the crowd decided to call him.
Oh, yeah. That was such a good story. For those who haven't read it yet, what was so special about this Danny phenomenon?
Well, it really gets at, I think, that old school U.S. Open spirit that the article talks about. Here you have this British tennis player, right? He's giving it everything he's got. This match is brutal. And the crowd just embraces him. They start calling him Danny. This whole electric atmosphere forms.
See, that's what makes me think the Open hasn't totally lost it.
Right.
Even with all the, I don't know, the distractions, the crowds, the chaos, you can still get these moments of genuine connection between the players, the fans. That's the magic right there.
Absolutely. And the article acknowledges that too. It's not about being oh, the Open was so much better in the good old days, or these newcomers are ruining everything. It's just recognizing that this influx of new fans, it changes things, and we have to figure out how to navigate that.
It's like when your favorite band gets signed to a major label, right? Part of you is yes, this is amazing. They're going to be huge. But then there's that other part. I kind of miss those shows they used to play in someone's basement. you know?
What a perfect analogy. You get why they're playing bigger venues, reaching a wider audience, all of that. But you do kind of miss that intimacy, that shared experience with the other, like diehards from the early days.
Exactly. And I think that's what the article is getting at. How do we hold on to that? Those genuine moments of connection, those pockets of what made it special in the first place, even as things change and evolve around it.
It's such a delicate balance. And I don't even think the article pretends to have the answer. But it does offer some, I think, really interesting perspectives on how we at least start to think about this new era of the U.S. Open.
So where do we go from here? I mean, is there any going back? Or has, the genie left the bottle?
Well, and I appreciate this about their article. They don't try to offer some, like, magical solution because there really isn't one, right? It's not that simple.
Right. You can't just, I don't know, put the hype genie back in its bottle.
Exactly.
And honestly, more people excited about tennis, that's got to be a good thing, right? Even if it's a little messy.
Yeah, that's right. And this is where I think they bring up a really interesting point. They say, maybe the key here is actually about shifting our own perspective a little bit.
Okay.
So instead of focusing on, lamenting what might be lost, what if we just embraced it,
Okay.
Tried to adapt our expectations and actually be open to finding those pockets of authenticity, those genuine moments, but within this new, larger-than-life U.S. Open experience.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's something you probably experienced in other areas of life too, right? Things change, they evolve, and sometimes you kind of just have to roll with it and hold on to what matters most to you.
Exactly. And think about it this way. The U.S. Open, it's always been this, melting pot, a place where you have all these different cultures, generations, backgrounds all colliding, and this new wave of fans. It's really just adding another layer to that tapestry, even if it feels a little jarring sometimes.
Jarring is a good word. But yeah, I get it. Embrace the chaos, but keep an eye out for those Vamos Chung moments.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe this new era will bring its own unique brand of magic, you know? Oh, and this is funny. Remember how the article ends? They actually suggest that and I quote, lewd badminton love triangle movie could be the solution to all this.
Okay, that is a new one. Yeah, but I think I get what they're getting at. Sometimes it takes something totally out of left field to shake things up, get people talking, maybe even help us rediscover why we loved something in the first place.
Exactly. And it brings us back to that core question. How do we engage with the things we love as they change? Do we resist change? Or do we find ways to adapt and really connect with those shared passions, even if it means being surrounded by, selfie sticks and brand activations?
Deep thoughts for a tennis court. But I think the takeaway here is that the U.S. Open, it's in a constant state of evolution. It's always been a spectacle, but now it's like a spectacle on steroids, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's okay, as long as we don't lose sight of the heart of it all.
Absolutely. So next time you're navigating those crowds at Flushing Meadows, or even just scrolling through your Instagram feed during the Open, just take a second, right? Think about that tension, that push and pull between the spectacle and the soul. And ask yourself, what does the U.S. Open even mean to you? And how has your relationship to it changed?
Love it. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive for today. Big thanks to you for sharing this article. It's definitely sparked a conversation that I think will be sticking with us long after the final ball is served at this year's Open.